Thank you for tuning into the Collecting Real Estate podcast. We focus on learning and teaching based on our guests' journeys operating their real estate investments and providing investment knowledge to passive investors so they can comfortably invest in multifamily real estate. Welcome, everyone, to the Collecting Real Estate podcast. Today I'm doing a solo cast. I had a discussion with a great friend of mine and also a passive investor in one of our real estate deals in Florida. And we were discussing the next investment, and he had mentioned a few things that would be a concern of his and maybe a concern of other investors or passive investors, active investors for that matter, going into this uncertain 2023 period of time. So this episode is 3 good reasons that may be keeping investors on the sidelines. As I mentioned, I was having a discussion with my friend Justin, who is an investor, and we just got on the topic as far as that next deal. He's interested in the next deal because the deal he's involved in right now is doing super well. He's gotten 2 distributions in just over a year's period of time. We could take advantage of that refinance if we chose to. We've been holding off for a bit. Everybody knows that interest rates are a bit hiked. So we will be planning and posturing if and when we feel like the rates might dip a little bit, take advantage of that refinance and get all of our investors' initial capital back. That is the name of the game here. At that point, we're all operating on an infinite investment, and that is very, very lucrative and very appealing to any investor. And we're able to roll that cash into that next deal. So as we were discussing all of this, we are always excited about that next great deal. And we have a specific buying criteria that I've stuck to for a long time. I learned this over the years, and if you stick to this buying criteria, it really enables your investment to be much more successful. 5 points that I like to focus on. Number 1, I think everybody else does this or should be doing this. I know that there's money to be made in challenging areas, but not for me. I'm always looking for number 1, that great location. Number 2, great floor plans. Very, very important. I've had properties over the years where it could be a great location. Cash flow is great. Everything about the deal makes perfect sense, but might have apartments that may have been chopped up a bit over the years. And if the floor plan of an apartment doesn't flow properly, I've found through my experience, you could end up showing that apartment that's priced properly 20, 30 times. The reason that it's not renting quickly is because it does not have a good flow. I always like to bring this up because once you show an apartment 20, 30 times, I think we get a bit anxious, and we always want to keep our buildings and apartments with a high occupancy rate. And we unfortunately may get a little bit compromising with our screening, and that's the biggest mistake we can make. So when we get anxious on this goofy floor plan, we compromise our screening. Ultimately, we have just opened ourselves up to make our management a little more difficult, because the name of the game is we are as good as the tenants that we are putting in our units. If we're compromising our screening, get ready. You'll have some delinquency. You'll have some tenants that may not fit well into the building because We compromised our tenant screening. Third buying criteria, buy where that property is situated in a neighborhood, in a vicinity that's going to be attractive to desirable tenant prospects. Very, very important. All of these criteria are equally important. Number 4, buying a building that has a high quality, has high quality building materials within the apartment. I love brick buildings. We love apartments that have hardwood floors. Hardwood floors are timeless. We have buildings that have had hardwood floors forever. They're 100-year-old buildings, apartments with hardwood floors. We can refinish them, and they're beautiful. Floors that were installed 100 years ago are still very desirable today. How many building materials can you say that for? Most other building materials get dated, have to be torn out and updated, which we all know, especially now, costs a tremendous amount of money. So hardwood floors are huge. Newer windows is always a nice building material to have. Tenants will certainly realize the quality of windows, especially in the Northeast in the wintertime. Number 5, last buying criteria, amenities. It's nice to have laundry facilities in the unit, or at least having a coin-op laundry room, have an outdoor space people can enjoy, maybe add a dog park, things like that. So you can see these 5 buying criteria. If you check all those boxes, you're able to get a great tenant that's willing to pay premium rent and will be easy to manage. That's what we're looking for. The 3 concerns my friend Justin came up with was going into 2023 and forward, rising interest rates. Is that going to make buying real estate undesirable at this point? And the way I reacted to that was, and I've thought of this previously, was I've been investing for over 25 years, and 95% of the time as an investor, our average interest rate has been between 5.5% and 7%. We had a successful career up until 2018, 2019, investing based on those level of interest rates. Interest rates are just another line item in our underwriting, and we underwrite accordingly. If we want to take advantage of that refinance after we add some value to a property and get some of our or all of our investment money back, we are underwriting cautiously on that interest rate. For example, if I was to buy a property tomorrow, going interest rate 5.5%, 6%, naturally I'd be talking to 3 different banks, making sure that they're competing with each other and getting the best rate in terms, estimating between 5.5 and 6 at this point. And I would underwrite the refi interest rate in 2 to 3 years to be 8%. And that, I would say, is conservative. If it's better than that, great. That would be a nice surprise. But we're going to underwrite that line item conservatively. Second issue he had is, are values going to decline? And what is obvious, well, to some, is yes. When rates go up on income-producing real estate, values are going to naturally dip a bit. A buyer of rental property is not going to be able to pay as much for a property if that one line item in the underwriting goes up dramatically. It's going to lessen the amount that we're willing to pay for that property. Third is rent stabilization a concern throughout the country? And is this something that is going to keep people on the sidelines? And that one's a great question. Being a New Yorker and a New York investor for a long time, but now investing in Florida and also Tennessee, I'm enjoying some of the landlord-friendly byproducts of Florida and Tennessee. It is much easier to do business than New York. Over the past 5 years, I have witnessed New York has little by little made it much more difficult for landlords to do business. It's a much more tenant-friendly state, especially experiencing COVID. It was so friendly to the tenants. And unfortunately, it got to a point where we were rewarding horrible behavior. People were just not paying their rent just because they could avoid eviction. So if you're buying in New York, yes, that is a concern. You have to take into consideration that New York is very interested in creating what they're calling a good cause eviction law, which basically says you're only able to raise your rents 3 or 5% a year. You're not able to not renew a tenant, so you'll be stuck with a tenant if they are paying, whether that tenant's a nuisance or a problem in any way, shape, or form. You lose that ability to do that. And also a longer list of items that they've already created. And that would just be the cherry on top of New York State basically taking away our entire business model and saying, this is how New York State is going to allow you to run your business. So in New York State, yes, I will buy a great deal in New York State if I'm comfortable with the 5 points in my buying criteria, and there's a lot of potential to make money there, and I have to do those deals. Will I hold it long haul like I had been? Maybe not. But if I'm looking at deals in Florida, Tennessee, anywhere in the Southeast, Florida has talked about some type of rent stabilization a little bit. I don't believe it's been really taken seriously up till now. Tennessee hasn't said a thing about it, but I'm very bullish in the South because of those lesser rules against the landlords in relation to the tenants. So he does have a great point on some of the rent abatement and stabilization issues and a lot of those very, very tenant issues that we have to deal with New York, but take every deal into consideration. But it does make me very bullish to do much more business down in Florida and Tennessee. I want to leave you with 2 takeaways here. Number 1, now is always a good time to get into real estate investing. And number 2, make sure you do your homework and be clear and confident with your buying criteria and your business plan. Always be buying real estate. Be careful when you're buying, especially in a time of uncertainty like 2023, and you will be fine. Thank you for listening to the Collecting Real Estate podcast, and I'll catch you next time. Hey everyone, If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a review and 5-star rating. This would be very helpful to us. It allows us to build momentum in the podcast world.